What did Jack do for a living? He owned some land. He owned the land. He got the land.
He was a rancher, and he was president of the bank in Throckmorton.
He was. Oh, I didn't know that. Was that at the end of his life, and then he died?
Yeah, he died at the bank. He had a heart attack at the bank and died there.
Yeah, at the bank.
Yes.
In his office?
Yes.
Sitting or standing, do you know?
Next is a veteran voice in the banking industry who agrees, says the time to act on First Republic is now. Let's bring in John Maxfield. John, it's great to have you here today. Welcome.
I am very excited to introduce John Maxfield.
Quick takeaway is that he's brilliant. He's probably forgotten more about banks than I'll ever know.
This guy is a walking encyclopedia of banking.
John spends a lot of time around just quality people.
We're building a model, kind of remaking the model of banking. And we're going to remake it in a way that anyone can understand. It doesn't have to be that complicated. This is simple.
John, let me have you respond to that before Leslie. I give you a quick last word.
I appreciate his point, but you do actually have to go back to 1830 to find a comparable precedent.
He's become not only a banking scholar, but like a banking artist. His house is, become a frame factory. There's banks with parachutes, there's bankers with capes, there's animals. John also, by the way, designs those postcards about bank building. Joey, I probably have, about 100 of them? I mean, you name it, it's now part of banking.
I'm a performance guy, but it's not what we think it is. It's not ROE and ROA. And you step back and you say what is the thing that allows these institutions to outperform the others? And you're driven to this place where, again, it's about the decision making, about the accuracy of the decision making, the independence of the decision making. But then you have to take a step further back, like what enables a person to make those good decisions? And that's where all the action is.
That defined a lot in Richard.
Explain that.
Well, we've just seen him, and he always said, never leave without saying you love someone, or without giving them a hug, or without acknowledging that you love them. And he got to do that with his dad, but he never got to say goodbye because his dad was already dead somewhere.
I was never the smartest guy, but I think my parents and John McMillan, all those years working with John, I think they instilled in me a common sense that I've relied on my entire life.
They would have never called themselves poor. They just didn't have any money because everything they had was there.
When I say we know what it's like to have your bank taken away, that's what happened in Argentina in 2000. Remember, we lost all the money we made from 1914 to 2000 in 8 days.
It's time for Scott.
Get up here, Scott Deeser.
Thank you for doing this. This has been great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this because it's so different from what we all go to, and it's been very valuable.
I mean, what you're doing today, it's crazy. This conference.
Mr. Jonathan Rowe is going to come up real quick.
Thank you, Renee. We're going to have lunch, which is hopefully one of everyone's favorites, Chick-fil-A.
The frame game.
I mean, we should offer more than just the frame if somebody like all the Chick-fil-A. That's Bob Newman. Congratulations. Thank you, Jamila. Soren.
Mr. Atwater.
All right, we're going to save this one for Mark.
I love this one.
Jonah. Okay, come on. Don't fight over it. Who said that?
CK.
Wow, well done. That man gets a Chick-fil-A.
It's my extreme pleasure to introduce Mark Lynch. I consider him to be the number one intellect in the industry. Did you want to say anything about
our throwing competition?
Yeah.
Right, that I won.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was like he threw it end over end. Yeah. Most of the people here know that there's a little football that goes on in my life. The guy who owns CK's bank is a guy by the name of Ross McKnight. So your dad died in his bed?
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Sure. The last thing I said to him, he asked me to change channels on the TV, and I said, change the channel yourself, you're overgrown. I had stayed home from school on Thursday and Friday and gotten him sober. I was old enough that I realized what he did, so I was sober and he was in good shape. So I went to Friday night football game. When I came back, Mabel had given him alcohol again. I was so mad I couldn't see straight.
I'll be brief. You guys have listened to me way too much today, but one of the problems that we run into with banking is this reputational thing, and there's no question about that. I mean, look, I spend my life studying this, and that's all I do, and I do it very interesting. I think you guys probably get the sense for that, but we're not communicating facts well at all. There are not many people who know the story. There are not many people who take the time to know the story. And so anytime you can have something like this, a cathedral kind of, in a sense, that represents the story and represents the goodness of the financial community, I think this is something that we should rally behind. I can tell you that I would not ask you guys to do this without myself putting money on the line, and you can ask my business partners, you can ask probably most bankers who know me, like I put my own money into these things for the banking industry because I believe in you guys and I believe in what we're doing. When you think about this building right here, it is the first bank in the United States, but it's representative of something even more important than that. And that is kind of what Brent said earlier today, the nobility of banking. And you think so Stephen Girard's this guy who's born in Bordeaux, France, and gets stuck over here during the American Revolution because he makes his way up to Philadelphia. He becomes this incredibly successful merchant. And then you have a yellow fever epidemic in 1793. 40% of the population left. The people who couldn't afford to leave were stuck. It got so dire at one point that the mayor of Philadelphia called a meeting among the citizens, and 10 people volunteered. One of those people was Stephen Girard, actually acting as a nurse in the hospital for yellow fever patients. And so he put himself on the line. 20 years later, this bank's charter is not renewed. That leaves the United States without a de facto central bank. Well, what happens in 1812? The War of 1812. We lose the War of 1812. We're drinking tea today. Stephen Girard personally underwrites the War of 1812. We win the war, and here we are, we're not drinking tea. Stephen Girard goes on to become the richest man in America between 1811 and 1831. He dies with the entirety of his fortune. The richest man in America. To found a school for poor orphans, teach them, and it is a boarding school from kindergarten through high school. All expenses paid. And that school today, what part of town is it in?
Brewery Town.
In North Philadelphia, it's still going today as a result of his endowment. His endowment is still financing this thing. Here's the first big banker in America. He serves as a nurse during the yellow fever epidemic. He personally underwrites the War of 1812 for this country. He then gives all his money to found the school for poor orphans. And we can't tell that story? And people think that bankers are greedy fat cats? Do you know what I mean? We can't tell that story? If we care about the public, how they perceive bankers, this is an opportunity to put some money on the line and to make a difference.
It's hard to tell the truth when you lie to yourself. Always give too much of you to someone else.